Tonight, I'll take you back to the Xunyang River in China's eastern Jin Dynasty. It's not the melancholic chill described in the poem Seeing a Guest Off at Xunyang River at Night. Instead, it's an early autumn evening. Sunset dyes the river's surface golden red. The river breeze carries the faint scent of fresh fish, the bitter sweetness of reeds, and the aroma of millet porridge wafting from distant villages. It's soft, warm like the cotton-padded mattress sewn by Yun, pressing gently against your heart. You just open your eyes, and your feet sink into the soft mud by the riverbank. The mud is light brown, mixed with tiny reed roots and shiny fish scales leftovers, maybe from other fishermen cleaning their catch this morning. It's cool, seeping into the gaps of your straw sandals, but it doesn't stick. That's how Xunyang River mud is, soaked by the river for 1,000 years, soft but not mushy. When you step on it, you can feel the mud gently oozing between your toes like cotton batting fresh from the sun, fluffy and warm, still carrying the river's residual heat. The wind blows from the river, damp with mist. When it brushes your face, you taste a faint saltiness, like the coarse salt Yun uses for pickling. Not strong, but just right. The wind also carries the scent of lush reeds along the bank, a bitter, clean smell mixed with the river's moisture. It calms your heart, slowing even your breath. Looking far ahead, 3 or 4 small fishing boats dot the river like willow leaves floating on the golden red water. On one boat's bow stands a fisherman. His blue linen jacket billows in the wind as he calls out, "Time to haul in the nets." His voice draws long, carried by the wind floating toward you, then drifting slowly to the river's center. It startles a few egrets. The egrets have snow-white wings and pale yellow beaks. When they flap against the water, a splash echoes. The water droplets they stir up catch the sunset like scattered pieces of gold, falling on the river, then quickly melting into the golden red waves. I'm Afu, who lives in the fishing village by the river. Ajiang is my neighbor, just 2 houses away. We grew up catching fish by the river together. Back then, Ajiang was always better than me. He could hold his breath, dive into the water, and bring up crucian carp bigger than his palm. I'd always get tangled in water weeds, and every time he'd pull me out, then give me 2 of his fish. Later, we both became fishermen. Every dawn, we push out to the river together. Every evening, we haul in nets together. Yun always says, "You two are like real brothers. Even your net-casting postures are the same." This morning, Ajiang told me, Yun got up before dawn to cook millet porridge. She also packed ginger slices and green leafy greens fresh from their small riverbank garden, tender enough to squeeze water from. He said if we caught enough fish today, we'd boil a pot of fish soup by the river, and he wanted me to join. Come with me. Follow this clump of reeds. The cedar fishing boat up ahead is Ajiang's. Look at the hull, soaked black by the river, like the color of old tree roots. There are 3 shallow scratches along the gunwale. The top one is the deepest from last year's flood. When the river rose, Ajiang crashed the boat into a black reef in the center while trying to save his washed-away net. He squatted on the bow, touching the scratch for ages, his knuckles white with distress. Ayun laughed and said, "You value the boat more than yourself." Later, she wrapped the scratch with 2 layers of blue cloth torn from her old clothes, washed pale. Now it doesn't matter. It's become a mark of the boat. Ajiang is sitting on a wooden stool at the bow, hauling in his net. That stool was passed down from his father. Its surface is polished, shiny, enough to reflect blurry shadows. There's a small crack along the edge, which he bound with 2 loops of rattan cut from the hills last autumn, dried hard. It's stable to sit on, no wobbling. Watch his movements. His left hand rests on the gunwale, fingertips just catching a small groove he chiseled himself. The groove is half an inch deep and an inch wide. A few years back, he always felt unsteady when hauling nets, so he chiseled it by oil lamp at night, breaking 3 small chisels before he got it right. His right hand grips the net's main rope. Ayun twisted this rope last winter from hemp she grew herself. Every night, she spun hemp thread. It took half a month to make this rope. It's polished, shiny, still carrying the warmth of Ayun's fingers. Ajiang's grip is just right, his knuckles slightly pale, but not too tight. He says, "Squeezing too tight makes your hands numb. Hauling nets needs steady strength, like kneading dough. You can't rush it." Clearly, this is a skill he's honed for decades. "Afu, you're finally here. 1 more minute, and the fish soup would be ready." Ajiang sees us and grins, showing neat teeth. The wrinkles at his eyes still hold river mist like scattered dew. He's only halfway through hauling the net. A few reed stalks are caught in the mesh-thin ones from the river's center, pale green. There's also a cluster of emerald waterweed, with tiny droplets on its leaves snagged when he cast the net this morning. He hauls slowly but steadily. Every time he pulls up half a foot, he flicks the net gently to shake off excess water, saving energy. Look at the crucian carp in the net. They're already flopping. Their silvery scales catch the sunset. Some wag their tails hard, splashing water onto his rough linen jacket. He's wearing a gray short coat, washed pale. There's a blue cloth patch at the collar Ayun sewed it last month. Back then, Ajiang said, "No need to patch it. It's still wearable." Ayun glared at him. "The collar's frayed. If you don't patch it, it'll scratch your neck." "After patching," she added, "it'll last another 6 months. When we sell the millet after harvest, I'll make you a new one. When I jump onto the boat, the planks sway. You can hold the wooden post at the stern, it's cedar, as thick as a bowl. Ajiang ties his net to it so often that it's smooth and shiny. There's a small character, Jiang, carved on it. When he first learned to write, Ayun traced the character in his palm with a twig many times before he carved it. The strokes are wobbly. Even the 3 dots of the water radical are connected, but it's full of earnestness. Ajiang hauls in the last section of the net. Holding the edge with both hands, he presses his fingertips against the hemp threads of the mesh, then flicks it gently onto the boat's planks. Whoosh! Water trickles down through the net, like light rain, into a bamboo basket on the planks. The basket is woven from old bamboo. The strips are a bit loose. Ajiang bound the rim with 2 loops of rattan last year. Now it's half filled with fish, all crucian carp. The biggest is a foot long, as thick as little A. Lee's arm. The smallest is half a foot. They jostle in the basket, splashing water everywhere. Some even jump over the rim. Ajiang bends down, picks them up, and puts them back. He laughs. These little guys still want to run. We need to pick 2 of the freshest for the soup. Otherwise, Ayun will say I'm cheating you. Ajiang squats by the basket. The rough cloth of his trousers has mud on the knees from this morning when he pushed the boat ashore. He helped Uncle Lee haul his boat up and accidentally stepped into a mud puddle. He reaches into the basket, rummaging through the fish. His fingers are rough, with thick calluses on the knuckles from years of holding nets and rowing oars. There are a few shallow scars on his palms. The deepest one came from a fish bone 2 years ago. It stuck deep, bleeding a lot. Ayun chewed up hemostatic grass by the river and applied it, changing the dressing every day for half a month until it healed. You can still see a faint mark. First, he picks up a foot-long crucian carp, touching its gills with his thumb. The gills are bright red, like the sapangwood dye Ayun uses for cloth. You see? The gills are glowing red. It's only been half an hour since it left the water. Perfect for soup few bones, so little A. Lee can eat it safely. He picks another one of similar size and puts it in an earthenware basin lined with waterweed. Ajiang fetched the waterweed from the river this morning. Pale green flatsedge, still damp. It keeps the fish fresh. He brushes the waterweed over the fish, saying, "Fresh fish need waterweed to wrap them once they're out of water. Otherwise, their gills dry out, and the meat gets tough, like how people lose energy when they're thirsty." Let me tell you, Ajiang's son Ale is 6, the same age as my daughter Anu. Every evening, the 2 kids play under the old locust tree at the village entrance. Ale loves making clay fish. He digs yellow mud from the riverbank, sits on the locust tree's roots, and molds it, shaping bodies, fins, even carving scales with a twig. When he's done, he holds it up to show Anu. "Look at my fish. It's bigger than what Dad catches." If Ajiang is late, Ale stands on tiptoes, looking toward the river. He clutches his clay fish and mutters, "Why isn't Dad back? Did he catch a big fish?" Once, Ajiang was half an hour late because he had to mend his net. It had a big hole from a reef. He squatted on the boat, mending it for ages. When he got home, he found Ayla sitting under the locust tree, crying. His clayfish was crushed, and tears streaked the mud on his face. When asked, Ajiang learned that an old villager had told Allah, "There are big fish in the river that drag fishermen away." Allah was afraid something had happened to his dad. After that, whenever Ajiang is late, he always asks a passing fisherman to send a message home. "I'm mending the net. Don't let Allah wait too long." When I jump onto the boat, the planks sway. You can hold the wooden post at the stern. It's cedar, as thick as a bowl. Ajiang ties his net to it so often that it's smooth and shiny. There's a small character, Jiang, carved on it. When he first learned to write, Ayun traced the character in his palm with a twig many times before he carved it. The strokes are wobbly. Even the 3 dots of the water radical are connected, but is full of earnestness. Ajiang hauls in the last section of the net. Holding the edge with both hands, he presses his fingertips against the hemp threads of the mesh, then flicks it gently onto the boat's planks. Whoosh, water trickles down through the net, like light rain, into a bamboo basket on the planks. The basket is woven from old bamboo. The strips are a bit loose. Ajiang bound the rim with 2 loops of rattan last year. Now it's half filled with fish, all crucian carp. The biggest is a foot long, as thick as little A. Lee's arm. The smallest is half a foot. They jostle in the basket, splashing water everywhere. Some even jump over the rim. Ajiang bends down, picks them up, and puts them back. He laughs. These little guys still want to run. We need to pick 2 of the freshest for the soup. Otherwise, Ayun'll say I'm cheating you. Ajiang squats by the basket. The rough cloth of his trousers has mud on the knees from this morning when he pushed the boat ashore. He helped Uncle Lee haul his boat up and accidentally stepped into a mud puddle. He reaches into the basket, rummaging through the fish. His fingers are rough, with thick calluses on the knuckles from years of holding nets and rowing oars. There are a few shallow scars on his palms. The deepest one came from a fishbone 2 years ago. It stuck deep, bleeding a lot. Ayun chewed up hemostatic grass by the river and applied it, changing the dressing every day for half a month until it healed. You can still see a faint mark. First, he picks up a foot-long crucian carp, touching its gills with his thumb. The gills are bright red, like the sapwood dye Ayun uses for cloth. You see? The gills are glowing red. It's only been half an hour since it left the water. Perfect for soup few bones, so little Ale can eat it safely. He picks another one of similar size and puts it in an earthenware basin lined with waterweed. Ajiang fetched the waterweed from the river this morning, pale green flatsage, still damp. It keeps the fish fresh. He brushes the waterweed over the fish, saying, "Fresh fish need waterweed to wrap them once they're out of water. Otherwise, their gills dry out, and the meat gets tough, like how people lose energy when they're thirsty." Let me tell you, Ajiang's son, Ale, is 6, the same age as my daughter, Anu. Every evening, the 2 kids play under the old locust tree at the village entrance. Ale loves making clay fish. He digs yellow mud from the riverbank, sits on the locust tree's roots, and molds it, shaping bodies, fins, even carving scales with a twig. When he's done, he holds it up to show Anu. "Look at my fish. It's bigger than what Dad catches." If Ajiang is late, Ale stands on tiptoes, looking toward the river. He clutches his clay fish and mutters, "Why isn't Dad back? Did he catch a big fish?" Once, Ajiang was half an hour late because he had to mend his net. It had a big hole from a reef. He squatted on the boat, mending it for ages. When he got home, he found Ale sitting under the locust tree, crying. His clay fish was crushed, and tears streaked the mud on his face. When asked, Ajiang learned that an old villager had told Allah, "There are big fish in the river that drag fishermen away." Allah was afraid something had happened to his dad. After that, whenever Ajiang is late, he always asks a passing fisherman to send a message home. "I'm mending the net. Don't let Le wait too long. Save these medium-sized ones for Ale." "He told me last week he's been craving pan-fried fish," said An Wang next door. "Fries fish with such crispy skin. I want to show him what I can do." Jiang picked 5 more crucian carp, each about half a foot long, from the basket and placed them in another small bamboo basket. It was Al's toy basket, its strips dyed colorful with leftover dye from Yun's cloth making. Usually it held Al's mud toys, but today he'd fetched it for the fish. He touched the fish in the basket, brushing their backs lightly with his fingertips, and smiled at us. When Yun packed ginger slices for me this morning, she also slipped a wheat cake into the cloth bag. She said I'd be tired after hauling in the nets and told me to nibble on it first look. He pulled a wheat cake wrapped in oiled paper from the blue cloth bag at the stern. The paper, bought in town, was slightly transparent, revealing the golden crust inside. It still carried a faint warmth. Yun had steamed the cake that morning, wrapped it in cotton wadding, and put it in the bag to keep it from getting cold. Jiang unwrapped the paper, and the aroma of the wheat cake drifted out, mixed with the scent of sesame. Yun's skills are better than the bakery in town. She adds a handful of sesame when making wheat cakes, says sesame adds fragrance and a nice chew. "Have a taste?" He broke off half and handed it to me. I took a bite. The crust was crispy outside and soft inside, the sesame releasing a rich aroma as I chewed, with a hint of sweetness. Yun had added a little malt sugar. After hauling in the nets, Jiang picked up the oars to row the boat toward the reed thicket near the shore. The thicket was close to the village, only half a li away. The bank there was dry, with plenty of firewood, perfect for boiling fish soup. His rowing was skillful, left hand forward, right hand back. With each stroke, the oars carved a silver arc on the river surface, and the boat drifted half a jiang forward. When the oar blades cut through the water, they splashed up tiny silver droplets that fell on the deck, drying quickly and leaving faint water spots. This reed thicket was planted last spring. Before that, this was a muddy patch that always held water mucky as anything on rainy days. Later, the village organized everyone to plant reeds here, Jiang said as he rowed, his eyes on the reed thicket shore. Reeds keep the water in check, so mud doesn't wash into the river when it rains. They're good firewood, too. We use them for boiling fish and cooking. And they shade the fish. In summer, the fish all hide under the reed roots to cool off. Look at those reeds half a person tall, with pale yellow stalks and whitish plumes. They rustle softly when the wind blows, like the sound of Ale scraping his bamboo basket with a twig, or the hum of Yun spinning hemp thread so gentle. A few dragonflies rest on the reed plumes, their wings transparent with a faint reddish tint. The wind sways them slightly, but they don't fly away, as if they're waiting for the fish soup to be ready too. When the boat reached the shore, Jiang first stowed the oars on the oar rack at the stern. He'd made the rack himself from wood, carved with simple fish patterns, and it fit the oar handles perfectly. Then he held onto the gunwale and jumped ashore, moving lightly to avoid rocking the boat. His straw sandals sank half an inch into the soft mud, but he walked steadily. He'd walked the muddy riverbanks for decades, knowing exactly where the mud was soft and where it was firm. "I'll go gather firewood. Can you watch the boat for me? Don't let the water birds steal the fish," he said, bending down to pick up firewood. He chose willow branches blown down by the wind, thin, straight ones with smooth bark and no wormholes, easy to light. He also picked those with bark on them. Willow branches with bark have a fresh scent when burned. They take away the fishy smell when boiling soup better than those without bark. Every now and then, when he found a few pine blocks, he'd carefully tuck them into his jacket. The pine blocks were dark brown, with traces of resin, hard as a rock. "Pine burns long," he said as he gathered firewood. "Fish soup needs low heat too high, and the soup won't turn white. You'll overcook the fish too, just like simmering porridge. Gotta take it slow to get that thick consistency." He already had a small armful of willow branches and 3 pine blocks tucked in his jacket. Let me tell you, Jiang learned his fussiness about firewood from his father-in-law. His father-in-law, Old Man Zhou, was a famous old fisherman by the Xunyang River. Everyone called him Uncle Zhou. Not only was he good at fishing, but his fish soup was legendary milky white, fresh even without salt. Restaurants in town tried to hire him as a chef, but he just laughed and said, "I've lived by the river my whole life. Away from it, I can't make this taste." When Jiang first married into the family, Uncle Zhou taught him, "For river fish soup, firewood is the bone, fire is the soul. Willow branches catch fire fast. Pine blocks keep the fire going. Reed stalks even out the flame. That's how you get fresh soup and tender fish." Now, every time Jiang makes fish soup, he follows that rule, never a mistake. Once Ale asked him, "Why does Grandpa know so much?" Jiang said, "Because he's lived by the river his whole life. He's friends with the river and the fish. You should try gathering firewood too. Willow branches feel a bit rough, but light hold one, and you can smell faint woody scent, like new willow buds in spring. Reed stalks are hollow, soft to the touch. Squeeze too hard, and they flatten. Flattened reeds make too much smoke," Jiang said. "They'll give the soup a burnt taste. Pick straight ones stiff, like Ale's little arms." We gathered firewood for about half an hour, piling up willow branches, reed stalks, and a few pine blocks. Jiang tied them with straw soft. Strong straw yun had dried last autumn, still carrying the smell of sunlight. It didn't chafe when he slung the bundle over his shoulder. He was used to carrying firewood, bundle on his right shoulder, left hand holding it to keep it from falling. Back at the shore, Jiang found 3 smooth green stones, roughly the same size, and arranged them in a triangle. He'd picked the stones from the riverbank, polished smooth by decades of river water, no sharp edges, like the tofu blocks Yun made. "I've used these 3 stones for 3 years," he said. "They're just the right size to hold the earthen pot, no slipping. Last year, I used an unsteady stone almost tipped the pot over. Yun nagged me about it for days. He set the earthen pot gently on the stones, tested its stability, and tapped the rim lightly. When the pot didn't move, he finally relaxed. The pot was made of coarse pottery, dark brown, with faint lines, natural marks from firing, like ripples on the river. There was a tiny crack along the rim from when Ale knocked the pot off the table last year. Ale had tried to help Yun carry the pot. His hand slipped, and it fell. He'd cried, scared, saying, "Mom, I didn't mean to." Yun didn't blame him. Instead, she knelt down, patted his head, and said, "It's okay. Mom'll wrap it with cloth." Later, she wrapped 2 loops of blue cloth round the rim and even tied a bow. "We'll make do," she said. "When we sell fish this winter, we'll buy a new one." Jiang untied the short knife from his waist. It was iron, with a slightly rusted blade from being out by the river so much, always damp but sharp enough to scrape fish scales easily. The handle was locust wood, carved with deep lines from years of use. At the end of the handle hung a small copper bell Ale had tied it on, saying, "When I hear the bell ring, I'll know Dad's gutting fish." "This knife was a wedding gift from my father-in-law," Jiang said. "He told me, a fisherman needs a good knife for cleaning fish and for self-defense. There are wild creatures in the river sometimes. A knife gives you courage." Kneeling on the ground, he scraped the fish scales gently, starting from the tail to the head. He pressed his fingers against the fish to keep it from slipping. The scales fell to the ground, silvery like scattered bits of silver. Soon, a few black ants came, circling the scales. Some tried to carry them back to their nest, but couldn't scurrying around in a hurry. After scraping the scales, he made a small cut under the fish's belly, not too big, not too small, just enough to fit his finger. He reached in and pulled out the innards, but kept the swim bladders. The swim bladders were translucent, like the thin silk Yun used for sewing. "Yun says swim bladders make soup nourishing," he said. "I've been staying up late mending nets. My eyes are a bit blurry. She told me to drink more of this." He put the swim bladders in an earthen bowl, soaked them in clear water, and tossed the innards, fish, intestines, and gills, still a bit bloody, onto the grass by the shore. In no time, 3 or 4 water birds came gray herons, common by the Xunyang River. Their feathers were light gray, bellies white, beaks long and sharp, like Jiang's short knife. They circled the innards, occasionally chirping softly thin sounds, like Ale's cooing when he's being clingy. The boldest one even brushed against Jiang's trouser leg. Its fluffy feathers tickled his ankle. "Slow down. Don't fight. There's enough for everyone," Jiang said, smiling. He scooped a ladle of clear water from the earthen pot, splashed it on the fish gills to clean them. The gills still had bits of blood. Once cleaned, they turned pale red. He tossed the gills to the herons. The bold one caught it at once, flew to a nearby reed stalk, and ate slowly, its neck bobbing up and down, just like ale when he eats. The others crowded over, craning their necks. Jiang tossed more gill bits. "These little guys wait for me here every day," he said. "They know I'll save scraps for them. Once I forgot to bring fish gills, they followed my boat for half a li until I threw them a piece of wheat cake. Just then, footsteps came from far away. Tap, tap, tap! It was Uncle Jiang from the village. He'd just come back from the fields, carrying a hoe. The hoe had an iron head and wooden handle, the wood polished shiny from use. A bamboo basket hung from the handle, holding fresh greens dark green, still covered in soil. Jiang making fish soup by the river again? Uncle Jiang laughed as he walked over. His dark face was covered in sweat from working under the Sunday. He set down the hoe, took the cloth from his shoulder, and wiped his sweat. The cloth was coarse, washed, pale, still dotted with mud. This year's millet is doing well, ears heavy with grain. We'll harvest in half a month. I'll invite you for rice wine. Then got a jar that's been fermenting for 3 years, real mellow. Uncle Jiang, want a bowl of fish soup? Jiang stood up, brushed fish scales off his hands, and smiled. Just started boiling, still need a bit. You can taste Yun's cooking. She packed extra greens this morning. I'll add some in. Cut the greasiness. You work hard in the fields. You deserve something fresh. Uncle Jiang waved his hand, smiling, showing his yellow teeth stained from years of smoking. No, your aunt's waiting for me at home. She made pumpkin soup, said I worked hard today, told me to come back early. He nodded at Jiang's earthen pot, eyes full of envy. Tasted your fish soup last year so fresh, better than the restaurants in town. Their soup has too much salt, drowns out the fish's flavor. Yours is pure. Yun's a good cook, you're lucky. He picked up his hoe. I'll head off now. Enjoy your meal, don't keep Ale waiting. His footsteps faded behind the reeds. You could still hear him humming a tune, a fishing song from the village. Simple melody, but full of joy. Jiang took ginger slices from the blue cloth bag at the stern. Yun had sliced them that morning, even thickness, about half an inch thick, wrapped in oiled paper. When he unwrapped them, you could smell the faint ginger scent, like fresh ginger just dug from the ground. Yun says you don't need much ginger. 3 slices are enough, he said. Too much, and it overpowers the fish. Like in opera, supporting roles shouldn't steal the lead. He dropped the ginger slices into the earthen pot. They made a soft plop as they hit the water, sinking slowly. Then he picked up a gourd dipper made from a gourd Ale had picked last autumn. Ale had drawn little fish on it with charcoal. You could still see the faint marks. Jiang had hollowed out the gourd, dried it, and trimmed the rim into a circle with a knife. The rim was a bit lopsided, but it held a lot of water. 1 dipperful was almost 1/3 of the pot. He scooped 3 dippers of water, just enough to cover the bottom of the pot. Can't use too much water, soup will be bland, he said. Can't use too little either. Will boil dry. Gotta cover the fish just right. To light the dry firewood, Jiang used matches, kept in a small tin box. He'd bought the tin in town last year with money from selling fish. It had simple carvings, fish shapes. Before, he used a flint, always hard to strike, easy to chafe his hands. Once Ale tried to help him use the flint, scraped his hand until it bled. Yun had said, "Stop using flint by matches, safer." "These matches are so much easier," Jiang said. "No more fighting with Ale over the flint." Before, he loved hitting it, saying, "Sounds like a little drum." Ended up with ash all over his hands. He smiled, struck a match. The flame flared up orange-red, like the sunset. He carefully held it to the willow branches. They caught fire quickly, crackling softly like the small firecrackers Ale played with. Smoke drifted toward the river on the wind, pale blue, fading fast. Only the faint woody scent lingered, mixing with ginger, floating in the air. When the water boiled, it bubbled, gurgle, gurgle, tiny bubbles on the surface, like the soap bubbles Ale blew. Jiang gently lowered 2 crucian carp into the pot. When they hit the water, their tails flicked twice, splashing droplets onto the fire. They sizzled, drying quickly, leaving small black marks. He pushed the fish gently with a spoon, afraid they'd stick to the pot bottom. The spoon was wooden, with a long handle. Yun had made it specially for him, to keep him from getting burned while cooking. "You can't flip river fish too much," he said. "Flip too often, and the flesh falls apart like the mudfish Ale makes. Crumbles when you squeeze. Gotta let it simmer slowly. Like raising a kid needs patience." Let me tell you, Jiang's first time making fish soup was right after he married Yun. Back then, he didn't know a thing. Yun asked him to make fish soup. He put the fish in cold water, lit the fire, and flipped the fish non-stop. The flesh fell apart. The soup never turned white, just murky, like muddy water. Yun didn't blame him. Instead, she sat down with him to figure it out. "Put the fish in boiling water, keeps the skin from breaking," she said. "Use low heat for the fire, makes the soup white. Don't flip the fish too much, let it simmer slowly." They tried again and again, once staying up till midnight. Finally, they made milky white soup. Jiang was so happy. He lifted Yun up and said, "We did it." Now every time Jiang makes fish soup, he thinks of that time. "Yun's the smart one," he says. "Without her, I still couldn't make good fish soup." Slowly, the soup turned from clear to pale, white like diluted milk, with tiny oil droplets floating on top from the fish itself. Not greasy, but fragrant. After another quarter of an hour, it turned thick, milky white, like the tofu pudding Yun made with a thin layer of oil on the surface. The aroma drifted into the nearby reeds, drawing a few small bugs, dark brown beetles. They circled the earthen pot, some even landing on the rim as if they wanted a taste too. Jiang took greens from the blue cloth bag Yun had picked them that morning from the small vegetable patch by the river. The leaves were dark green, roots still covered in soil. Ale had helped pick them. Pick the small greens, Ale had said. Small ones are tender. Jiang washed the greens clean, rinsed them twice in river water, and broke them into pieces about 3 inches long before dropping them into the pot. Just cook the greens until they're soft, he said. Overcook them, and they'll turn mushy like Ale's mudfish. Melts when boiled, not tasty. When the greens turned soft and dark green, the fish soup was done. Jiang didn't add salt. River fish have a natural salty freshness from the river water, he said. Too much salt covers that freshness. Like when ale uses too much paint hides the original color. Yun says, light tastes are better for your health. Old folks say, eat fish for freshness, eat greens for lightness. He took 3 earthen bowls from the blue cloth bag, all old ones from home. One was dark brown, with a small chip. Ale had dropped it while eating last time. Yun had mended it with a porcelain piece and painted over it. Still looks good after mending, she'd said. One was light gray, with little fish drawn on it. Ale had used charcoal. The third was White Yun's dowry piece. She rarely used it, only taking it out when they had guests. Wasteful to throw away, Jiang said. Mend it, and it still holds soup like Ale's mudfish. Fix the broken pieces, and it's still a fish.